Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kelsey Pepitone, and I'm with Chambers for Innovation and Clean Energy, or CICE for short. CICE is a national network of chambers of commerce and economic development professionals, organizations founded and run by chamber and economic development professionals. At CICE, we work to advance the clean energy economy, good clean energy policy, and clean energy projects that bring with them capital and community investment. We are not environmentalists or anti-anything. Rather, our focus is on educating both the business community and local stakeholders around the economic benefits, energy security, and resilience opportunities that clean energy projects can provide. We've been working in Ohio for nearly a decade, partnering with dozens of local chambers and economic development organizations to better understand both the economic and technological aspects of clean energy. Today, we're focusing specifically on the Grange Solar application as filed with the Ohio Power Siting Board. This press conference provides the opportunity for both local and state stakeholders to discuss the significant economic commitments that the project application has laid out for Logan County and the great state of Ohio. The Grange Solar project is a 500 megawatt, 2,600 acre project proposed for portions of Bloomfield, Richland, McArthur, Washington, and Stokes Townships in Logan County. According to the plans reflected in the application, the total investment in the project is expected to be $500 million. During construction, the project is projected to generate 1,156 direct jobs, with an estimated $70.7 million in direct labor income. Additionally, 16 to 19 jobs would be created for ongoing annual operations, including the operations and maintenance of the solar site itself, alongside a sheep grazing operation with direct annual labor income estimated at roughly $642,000 annually. Importantly, the applicant, Grange Solar, expects that a large majority of these opportunities will be filled by Ohioans. The benefits extend far beyond direct employment, however, as the construction phase is also expected to contribute roughly $91 million to the local economy as well. Once completed, the project is expected to deliver significant economic benefits for decades to come. Over its 40-year lifespan, Grange Solar is anticipated to generate $200 million in local revenue, roughly $5 million per year, which will support local schools, fire and EMS services, and public institutions. This is more than 85 times the revenue currently generated by the existing land use at the project site and will go to fund critical community infrastructure. For example, the Indian Lake School District stands to receive $96 million or $2.4 million per year. Additional details are available in Exhibit F, the economic report of the project's application, which you can find on the OPSB case record online. As part of the project's commitment to community investment, the applicant is pledging $10 million in voluntary contributions contingent on the project proceeding to construction and operations. I want to underscore this point clearly, that this $10 million is in addition to the estimated revenue numbers that I laid out before and that are laid out in more detail in the filed application. So these voluntary commitments include $2.5 million to a Logan County Opportunity Fund, which could support local priorities such as the construction of a new community center, for instance, $4 million to support local police and EMS services, a critical part of a county's infrastructure, $1.4 million for the cleanup and maintenance of a 3.35-mile stretch of the Great Miami River, and $1.2 million to the Ohio High Point Career Center to support vocational training programs for local residents and workers. These commitments are truly a reflection of community priorities as communicated through the developers' outreach efforts. More information on these outreach efforts and local engagement by the company can be found in the application. So today we're joined by three stakeholders who each share a unique perspective in the economic opportunities that Grange Solar project presents. So after their remarks, we'll open up the floor to questions for our speakers from the audience. So please submit your questions throughout the session in the Q&A portal at the bottom of your Zoom screen, along with your name and affiliation. Now, without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to our first speaker, Steve Stivers, President and CEO of the Ohio Chamber of Commerce and former representative for Ohio's 15th Congressional District. Steve, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Kelsey. It's great to be on with you. And again, my name's Steve Stivers. I'm the President and CEO of the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, and our mission is to aggressively champion free enterprise, economic competitiveness, and growth for the benefit of all Ohioans. And in keeping with that mission, in October of 2022, the Ohio Chamber published what we call the Blueprint for Ohio's Economic Future. It's a 15-year visioning plan to make Ohio the most competitive economy in the world and the best place to do business in the world. We did it in concert with Accenture, the world's biggest consulting firm. What we did was deconstruct a bunch of rankings, economic rankings of the states, and then built policy positions to move Ohio to number one. The blueprint identified 6 key areas of opportunity if we're going to make Ohio the number one place to work, live, and raise a family. And those areas are education and workforce, sense of place, which really means quality of life, taxes and cost, business friendliness, innovation and collaboration, and finally, infrastructure. And of course, infrastructure includes energy. It's not just roads and bridges and internet. We have to have a reliable energy grid. We have to have affordable energy. We need to be making Ohio-based energy. And the Ohio Chamber has an all of the above energy approach. We think we need all types of electric generation. We think we need all types of power, thermal power, solar power, every type of power. Alternative energy is an important piece of that. And so today I thought I'd talk a little bit about why we think this application for the Grange Solar Grazing Center is such a great idea. We know we've got to have a reliable electric grid if we're going to attract and retain new businesses. And right now, one of the biggest issues that we're starting to hear in economic development is literally not enough electric generation. We think solar adds to that mix, adds to the grid. This project not only brings new power online, it does it in a way that works in concert with agriculture and allows grazing on the project as well. It brings a huge new tax base to Logan County. In fact, the Grange Solar Grazing Center would be the biggest taxpayer in Logan County. We need this energy. We need these projects. We think it's the future to continue to have an all of the above energy approach. And we think it's important to not only Logan County, but for the whole state of Ohio. So we are excited to help support the future and making sure we have robust infrastructure and enough energy to support our economic growth. So I'm happy to answer any questions when the other speakers are done, but it's great to be with you today, and I'm excited to support this project.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we'll hear from Noah Ganson, a Logan County resident and owner of Ganson Farm and Wildlife. So Noah, over to you.
Hi. Thanks for inviting me. Grange Solar Project's right around my home. I grew up here in Logan County, own my own farm business. My dad's gotten out of it, so I've taken over. Expanding our farm business as a young farmer like myself, the cost of land here in Ohio is really high. So this project's going to give me an opportunity to graze sheep, expand my operation on land that I don't actually own, which I think that'll really benefit my business, stuff like that. On a more community-based area, perennial vegetation like we're going to have under our solar panels, I think is going to really help store carbon in the soil, improve our water quality. And the Great Miami watershed, this will help prevent fertilizers from entering our waterways, stuff like that, silt erosion. Other things like this, it'll add pollinator habitat underneath the solar panels, which I'm sure we've all heard about pollinators and their decline due to pesticides and habitat loss. This is my big thing other than farming is wildlife. So I believe this is a great opportunity to increase that. Other things, like they've said, community funding for fire and EMS. Both my parents were Firefighter, EMTs, paramedics their whole life, retired from that. So really getting money and funding for people like that is very important. Um, Other than that, I'm happy to answer some questions, talk a little bit more about sheep grazing and our goals with it. If anybody has questions later.
Thank you, Noah. And finally, I'd like to turn it over to Rando Morgan, founder and CEO of River Rangers International. So Rando, over to you.
There we go. I'm the non-technical guy of the group. I'm Rando Morgan. I originally met the Grange Solar folks a couple of years ago on a river cleanup in Logan County. And through collaboration and getting to know them, I thought this was a perfect opportunity to join something like this as accountability partner. So what's happened is Grange Solar hired my company to do an extensive study of approximately 3.6 miles. We found 37 hazards on the Great Miami River from the bottom of Indian Lake down to, I believe it was the 274 bridge. And within those 37 strainers, there was a total of 14 complete blockages. So the danger in this is that stagnant water is backing up. And I know that the lakes had some problems with algae and things like that. That continues to create problems down the river. So I'm coming on as an accountability partner to sustain the waterways in a very natural, eco-friendly way. So our methods are all natural. By us doing this, we'll be opening up a lot of economic opportunities for the community. Studies show that an average kayaker coming into a community could spend anywhere from $50 to $200 a day. This could depend on if they have overnight stay, how long their trip is. They're going to come in and buy gas, food, snacks before, dinner after, things like that. There's also possibilities to maybe a new canoe livery coming in, things like that. Just with the basic economic indicator baseline, you're looking at probably $40,000 to $50,000 a month of revenue during the season. That's roughly $250,000 that could come in. And Grange has committed to River Rangers a 40-year commitment, which comes out to about $1.4 million that they're committing to this community to make your waterways safe and clean. And our company is going to be there to administer it. We're going to do monthly, quarterly scans, auditing of the river. We send River Ranger scouts in the community. So once we clear all of the obstructions, we'll do a maintenance program. This is going to go on for 40 years, and we'll guarantee that the community will benefit from the safe and clean waterways. And as a partner with the solar company, Grange has made a tremendous commitment for 40 years for us to keep the waterways safe and clean. So we're excited to be a part of it. We're here for the community. We'd like to listen to the community. After this, I'm open for questions. And we look at this as a very exciting opportunity.
Thank you so much, Rando. And we're going to open it up here for questions. And as a reminder, please submit them in the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom screen. But before we do that, while I give folks a few minutes to think through their questions, I wanted to give a quick summary of the project timeline as it stands, just for awareness. So the application was filed on October 11th and is currently undergoing the Ohio Power Siting Board completeness review. So once deemed complete, the application will then undergo staff investigation and receive a staff report before it moves into both public hearing and adjudicatory hearing, the one time I can't pronounce that word, which are expected in the first half of 2025. So after those hearings, a decision is made. That decision can ultimately be appealed. If an appeal is not made and the project is approved, construction could begin as early as Q1 of 2026, with an expected duration of roughly 15 months of construction as indicated in the application. This would put the project on track for a commercial operations date in roughly Q2 of 2027. Again, this is as the timeline is reflected in the application as filed. But thank you again to our speakers, and please, if you have questions, let's see them in the chat. And I see that we just had one come in from Kathy and Kowalski with the Energy News Network. She asked, one of the issues we see in Ohio is that solar and wind generation face hurdles to siting that oil and gas drilling does not. In fact, Logan County is one of more than 24 counties that banned any new solar or wind, so this project can only go forward because it's grandfathered. Would the chamber support revising SB 52 to make it easier to add more necessary generation in Ohio? Steve, I think that question is probably best addressed for you here.
Great. Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Yes, we would support revising Senate Bill 52. We believe that power decisions, power generation decisions should be made on a statewide basis, not a township or county basis, because the grid is a very complicated statewide electric grid that should be evaluated to make sure that the entire state has all the energy that it needs. You don't produce energy for a township or for a city and then wall it off. This isn't a city state. Literally, the grid's interconnected from the East Coast to the West Coast, and we're in the middle in the PJM region. We need to make sure we're providing enough power. Just so you know, on any given day in Ohio, we only generate about 74 to 75% of our power inside Ohio. And that's with the rise of data centers and electrification of vehicles and all the new demands on electricity. That number is going down and down and down. And it's more problematic over time, in my opinion. And frankly, I'm not advocating that we should produce 100% in Ohio, but 75% is probably too low. And it results in Ohio customers being at the whim of the power generation auctions, and spot energy prices cost a lot more. You just saw that energy prices are going up. This most recent PJM auction really raised costs, and you'll see that in electric bills coming forward, whether it's residential or commercial.
Thanks a lot, Steve. And I see that we have a question also in the chat. And this one is for you, Rando. What are some strategies that you use to remove existing log jams? Noah, also one of our speakers, runs the clean sweep of the river in Logan County and knows firsthand what a challenge it is to navigate around those. So curious if you can speak to some of your strategies there.
Sure. That's a really good question. The study I have in my hand is over 50 pages long. And this is an example of just a common log jam. There's 14 complete log jams across the river and over 37 obstructions along the river. So we pride ourselves in using natural techniques. We'll also administrate all of the compliance issues with permits, landowner approvals, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers approvals of everything we do. So, when you hire river rangers that you're going to get a history of compliance. So with that being said, we use all natural methods. So our preferred way to do this, depending on what type of permits are approved, we can repurpose the natural woody debris into biofilters, which will naturally, as the water comes off Indian Lake, it's now stagnant in most places. I was personally on the scouting trip when we identified all these, and what should have been an hour-and-a-half trip ended up being about 12 hours, and it was exhausting. We had to get out, pull our boats over, take our drone footage or underwater footage, all the things that we do. We want to clear this. So what my goal is to repurpose a lot of the timber as natural riverbank stabilization. And some permits may not allow that. It'll take complete removal. So we go down the river. We don't bring in equipment. We don't build roads to the river. We fix the rivers from the inside out. So we'll come down in kayaks and barges and rafts. We'll use winches on the trees, a series of cables and pulleys and things like that. We make very specific cuts, and we tie off with biodegradable ropes. They have a long history tenure. So when the water comes down, it ends up building, the timber actually floats with our ropes. We call it ranger webbing. The sediment builds up, it reinforces the banks, and it makes it a clear, natural setting. So if you're an angler or a kayaker, you'll come down, you won't even know we're there, because everything we do is so natural. We're pioneers in these type of methods. So that's kind of the basics. And as we clear the river initially, this type of river, it's going to continue. The trees are going to keep eroding. It's the type of soil and the way the river meanders back and forth. You're always going to have the same problems. That's why it's so important to have a maintenance program. And the fact that they're investing 40 years into this, it's unheard of. So it's quite the commitment to pay a contractor to pay back to the community. So I hope that answers your question.
Sure does. Thank you. I want to turn to you, Noah, quickly. I was wondering if you could give a little bit more insight into some of the best practices for sheep grazing on solar sites and how you plan to utilize those on the Grange Solar site.
Yeah, so we raise cattle and sheep. So we pride ourselves in doing rotational grazing. We're getting more into the high intensity rotational grazing where you move them 2, 3, 4 times a day. We haven't got to that point yet. We still move ours about once a week to a new paddock. In the solar site, we're hoping to move 3, 4 times a day, or 3, 4 days at a time to a different paddock. This will eat all the grass in that site, move them, let that rest for 40 to 60 days. This builds up carbon in the soil, better water retention in the soil, helps refresh our groundwater. It'll also prevent like the whole place getting overgrazed, which you see a lot of pastures around this area. They've been overgrazed. They've just turned out in a pasture year round and then barned up in the winter. Kind of turns to a mud hole. There's no diversity in the ecosystem there. So that's hopefully what we're going to incorporate when we start doing the grazing.
Great, thank you. And there's actually, I'm going to stick with you here, Noah. There's a question for you from Kathy and Kowalski with Energy News Network. What's your sense as a resident of Logan County of local sentiment around the project? There were listening sessions, and she asks, I'm wondering what your sense of those is as a strategy for trying to get accurate information out in the field, especially when misinformation has been common at some other sites. Are there other things that you think as a resident have been helpful in the community for building support?
Yeah, there's a very vocal minority that is extremely against the project, which I'm sure many projects in the state have similar vocal minority that really doesn't like it. There is a good amount of people that are in support of the project as well. Trying to find what's fact and what's not can be a little difficult sometimes. You really have to dig and do the research. Grange Solar has posted some stuff on their community event they had yesterday. They answered some great questions, helped get the true facts out there about a project like this. The only thing I can say is really do your research. Don't fall for one side or the other. You need to make a decision on your own.
Great, thank you. And I'm Noah, I'm marathoning with you here. But there's another question for you from Daniel Turner. What kind of economic impact would grazing have on a small farm like yours?
It would be life-changing to a small farm like mine. I work off farm for one of the local townships here. The farming as of now is just a small part of my income. Being able to expand like this without having to go $2-3 million in debt to buy land is really going to be life changing for a small farm like mine.
Great. And a quick hitting one, just to underscore, and you might have mentioned this, but just to make clear, what type of sheep do you raise and how many do you expect to graze on the property? That was another part of Kathy Ann Kowalski's question.
Oh yeah, we raise hair sheep, mostly Catigans, but we do have some Dorper mix and some other variety. Um, they're predicting the project to have between 6,000 and 7,000 sheep. We don't have that many now. I don't think any single farmer in Ohio has that many. So this is done to give us time to expand, grow and expand our flock as we grow this project. So hopefully 6,000 to 7,000 in the future.
Wonderful. And I want to put out another call for questions here. I think we've addressed any outstanding in the Q&A, but want to give folks a chance to enter in any additional questions before we close the line here. But I think Rando, I'm curious if you could maybe make a comment too about your engagement with the project up until this point, and if you've done similar kind of engagements in the past with projects, and how this one will be similar or unique moving forward for you.
There we go. Gosh, I'm technically behind there. This will be our first solar project, but we have a long history of working with government agencies, National Scenic Rivers, Ohio Scenic Rivers, Department of Natural Resources. We're getting a lot of press, a lot of different things. Actually, Noah and I met a couple of years ago. I was up scouting the river, and we were trying to get funding to remove several log jams further down the Great Miami River. So with the Great Miami, we've done work there. We've done on the Little Miami. We're all over the place. We're starting a new project in upstate New York. I've got crews removing 6,000 tires in Northeast Ohio today with all natural. Everything we do is natural. Actually, they're being interviewed by a newspaper up there. So our reach is getting out there, and what that helps us with is communities know they can trust us because we're in a very unique business. We go in and we drone, videotape, document every single thing of the environment because we're mostly in environments that no one else can get to. So you have to have character to do the right thing when no one's watching. So, and that's what we commit to this community. For compliance, we'll document everything we do. The community will always be welcome to check out our work, and they'll get a report when we're done. We'll give a proposal of what we do before and then the after. So you'll get to see what it was, even though you're at home and you can't get to the river and it's too blocked up. You'll see the work that we did. We'll usually send video links plus a history of photographs with 360 cameras and things like that. So I don't know, in a roundabout way, I hope I answered your question, but it's such a unique business. We're extremely grateful for all the business and all the attention we're getting. We've just been keeping our nose to the grindstone. It's really about our mission, and the River Rangers mission has always been keeping waterways safe and clean. And I've had this idea since I was a teenager working at a canoe livery. Like was in the aftermath, a witness to a death on a river. And I've always had this idea. So we're very committed. And this company will go on for a very long time. We're a nonprofit social enterprise. So the commitment to community is solid. We'll be there as the steward of the waterway. That's basically what will be to your community.
Thank you, Rando. And is that report, the River Rangers report, is that publicly accessible?
I don't think it's publicly accessible. We were paid by Grange Solar for this proposal. It's very in depth. I'm sure we could probably make it accessible. So I'll have my office look into that. If you want to request that, I can make that kind of thing happen. I'll just have to get approval from the solar company to release it. But yeah, we should be able to make it public. It's quite eye-opening.
Great. So yeah, that was part of Kathy and Kowalski's next question was about that
Oh,
report.
okay.
So we'll see what we can do on that front. And also Kathy and I can follow up with the OPSB economic impact filing link as well. I'm happy to do that. And I think we had one more question from Kathy Ann as well, which actually was a question for CICE in terms of why does this project stand out for CICE in particular? As I mentioned at the outset here, you know, we champion the growth of the clean energy economy generally, and something that we've valued in the Grange Solar application in particular is that kind of voluntary, the additional voluntary commitments that we've seen that I laid out. We see solar developers going above and beyond what's required of them to do. And this is a good example of that. So that's something certainly that our organization as an economic development focused organization is happy to see. Anything that can inject additional local dollars is in a sustainable way that we know they can be held accountable to is something that we're happy to see. So I think that takes care of our questions. I'm just going to do a last call here give folks a few seconds in case there's anything else they want to drop into the Q&A. In the meantime, I want to thank our speakers again, Steve Stivers, Noah Ganson, Rando Morgan. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. We also want to thank everyone who joined for your participation. At CICE, we're always available as a resource, so please don't hesitate to reach out. We pride ourselves on providing fact-based, reliable information and are happy to assist however we can. In that vein, we recently released a report that we commissioned with researchers at Loyola University Chicago on the economic impact of the Ohio Payment in Lieu of Taxes, or pilot program for utility scale wind and solar projects in the state. So you can find that full report along with a 2-page executive summary on our website, chambersforinnovation.com. And please feel free to reach out should you have any follow-up questions for us about Ohio utility scale wind and solar, the Grange project in particular, and the like. So seeing no additional Q&A, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it. So thank you very much, everybody, and I hope you have a
Thanks,
great
Kelsey.
rest of your day. Thank you.